Hey, you got Keith here. Live in the lab with Keith Bilous. This guy on the show is going to teach me how to make not 10,000, not 1,000, 100,000 bucks an hour. Coming up today, live on the lab with Keith.
Hi, I'm Keith Bilous, and this is Live in the Lab.
All right. A little bit of weirdness in front of the camera there for anybody who's watching. So I'm like, hey, where's the button? Where's the button? I can't get it going.
How did you go viral on TikTok?
You were on America's Got Talent.
How much do you get paid to be on AGT? Oh, you didn't get paid.
Keith and Steve here in Live in the Lab.
You're a great interviewer. I love it.
48 miles, 48 hours. And not just once. You ain't seen nothing yet. I hit 50 last time, and I'm like, yeah, things are a little different than they were 10 years ago. So trust me, things are to keep.
You have no time for the BS that much of society seems to put on the table. Why is that? Like, what you're talking about is real right now. There's just no bullshit here, but it's just real.
We brought you in with some Marley. I said, Joseph, let's talk music for a second. You said, well, Keith, oldies, 60s, 70s, and 80s. I've never talked to a sir before. Why are you a sir? In many ways, we're the same story. I came from nothing. You came from nothing.
I think the old saying goes that if you want a trophy, you climb Everest. If you want respect, you climb K2.
I've built an airline myself, and it's pretty fascinating when you can have a conversation with yourself with your own knowledge. Have you done that before? Why are we rushing to make these tools if all they're going to do is hurt humanity?
Does the world need an Oppenheimer moment with AI?
What a fun show.
Yo, Business Athlete Nation. How are you doing today? It's Monday. We got a guest, Chris Ruden, joining us live in the lab. The guy's going to teach me how to make 100 grand an hour. Oh, yeah. Did I convince you to stick around? Did I convince you to stick around for a little bit? This guy might know what he's talking about. He's a professional public speaker. He's joining us from Florida today. You know, I'm in Winnipeg, Canada. Not as warm as Florida, I suspect. But Chris is going to join us here in a few minutes. He's going to teach me how to make a few bucks. A few bucks by public speaking. Because we know Business Athlete Nation. Uncle Keith over here needs to learn how to public speak. Yeah, we all know that I need to learn how to get on stage and speak to you. Yeah. But here's the thing. I don't. It's the truth. I'm going to be vulnerable with you guys for a second. So I found Chris on LinkedIn and I saw what content he was posting and I was quite intrigued by the content he was posting. And one of his posts was learn how to make money public speaking. And I've never done that before. I've never public spoken in front of an audience and got paid for it. And it is an ambition of mine. It's a goal of mine to get in front of all of you and have somebody give me a buck, maybe 50 cents, maybe $2, maybe in Canada, it's a loonie. But I would love to have somebody give me 10 grand, maybe 100 grand, maybe $1 million to go share what's in my skull. So Chris is going to join us here today to teach me and teach all of you, Business Athlete Nation, how to make some money public speaking. That's what this guy does. This guy's time is extremely valuable, so we're going to want to stick around to hear that. But before we do that, I want to recap a couple of things from the weekend. Yesterday, we talked yesterday about the Business Athlete Manifesto, and I asked all of you, and I'm going to ask Chris. His ears perk up in the green room. Oh, what's Keith going to ask me? Well, I'm going to ask Chris, and I'm going to ask all of you, have you created your personal manifesto yet? You know, we published the Business Athlete Manifesto last week. You know, our 10 values, our 10 principles of why you want to hang out with us, why you want to listen to what we have to say, why you want to, you know, the values that we stand on when we get out of bed every single morning, the values that we use to make our decisions. So I invite you to consider creating that manifesto. It'll help you as you get through those days, those struggling days, those days when you're like, I don't want to do anything today. I look at the manifesto. Oh, yeah, okay, right. It's like your personal instructions. So we published ours last week. We talked yesterday a little bit about, you know, this idea of good manners. I know it sounds so simple. It's like good old Hulk Hogan saying, eat your Wheaties. But the reality is good manners is the easiest fucking thing to do. It's like the easiest life hack ever. You say, please, you say, thank you. You shake somebody's hand, you look them in the eyes and you speak to them. You pay attention to them when they're talking. And I know you're listening to me going, yeah, really, Keith? No, I'm fucking serious, man. Like nobody does that, right? We all just take manners for granted. So I invite you, tune into yesterday's show. That's a 7-minute, 12-minute hit. It'll get you jacked up and remind you of the power of manners. So that's something I will invite you guys to pay attention to in your feeds. And if you want to get content delivered to your inbox or to your podcast machine, I invite you to subscribe inside bapl.ai, inside.bapl.ai. That'll get you on the old newsletter list. That'll get content sent to you specifically. Private stuff, secret stuff, special stuff, all kinds of stuff sent to you. We're not going to spam you. It's going to give you stuff of value. And of course, you can find us on our YouTube channel. Keith in the Lab, we rebranded it. So there's where you'll find the content on just the idea of creating your Business Athlete Manifesto. All right. So before we get to Chris, one last thing. Before we get to Chris Ruden, who's going to tell me how to make 100 grand an hour, I invite all of you creators, all of you entrepreneurs, all of you business leaders, all of you people out there who are stuck thinking about, hey, I have something in my head that I want to get out. Hey, I have knowledge I want to sell. Hey, I want to be a creator, but I don't know how, don't know where to start. I have this knowledge in my head. I want to create stuff. Hey, come call us. Come see me in the lab. You know what Apple did for the App Store? Courting developers, getting developers to create their apps, put them in the App Store. I'm going to tell you a little secret what's happening here in the lab. You know how Android created the Google Play Store? Thank you, Patrick Mork. So you got the App Store, you got the Google Play Store, courting developers. Well, the Business Athlete Performance Lab is launching the Academy in the lab. It's going to be a place for creators. It'll be a place for creators to launch their knowledge with all of the barriers removed. Just call me and tell me you're going to show up every single day, and I will help you unlock the value in your head. And then we'll monetize it. We'll put it out into the world and we'll share in the revenue. That's what's coming from the lab. I know you creators out there. There's a lot of you creators out there. I just don't know how to start. I was talking to a guy last week. He's like, yeah, I do home inspections. And he goes, I got guys ask me how I can be a home inspector. I'm like, well, fuck, let's create a course. 100 days, how to be a home inspector, $1,000. Boom. So we got courses launching, how to run a marathon in 100 days, how to trek a mountain in 100 days, how to do your marketing strategy in 100 days, all wrapped around the concept of 100 days. So come knock on my door. Come drop me a DM. Aspiring creator, want a creator, come see me. We'll help you unlock the value in your head. Make you some cash. Little side hustle maybe. Help you get out of that corporate job that I know you're dreading. All right, so listen, let's pivot our attention to over there. That camera over there. The guy in the green room, Chris Ruden, because I'm really itching. I'm itching to learn how to make $100,000 an hour. I wonder if you can teach me how to make $100,000 a minute. So if I talk for 60 minutes, oh yeah. Anyways, let's pivot our attention over here to Chris. The guy's got a wicked setup, man. You got to see his setup. I'm giving you every reason to stick around. He's got great bokeh. He's got great lighting. You know what lighting does? Lighting makes us all so much younger. So Chris, I think Chris for like 15. He's probably like 15 years old. Like I swear the guy looks like he's like Benjamin Button, like Brad Pitt. The lighting's exceptional. The bokeh behind him. Oh, I'm telling you, I'm giving you every hook to stick around. Let's bring Chris into the lab. Chris Ruden.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
What is going on today? Let me just get myself sorted out here, and then there you go. How's it going, man?
Really good, really good.
I'm really glad to have you here today. As you can tell by my energy this morning, I was excited I'm here to learn, man. I'm here to learn from you today.
I love it. I hope I can help.
It's awesome. So you're joining us from not Boca Raton. You're joining us from Fort Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Yeah. And how's what's Fort Lauderdale like these days?
We're freezing today, so it's 69 degrees Fahrenheit here. That is super cold for us.
It is super cold for you. Yes, it is. So it's not 69 degrees here today. It's about probably, I don't know, 25 maybe. I'm thinking.
I don't even know what that means down here. We have thin jackets and we still wear shorts. So yeah, it's very different here.
There you go. There you go. So let's keep the conversation going so we can keep the audience caring. I was advised by a guest last week. He's like, Keith, you never have the guests introduce themselves because they're going to be boring when they introduce themselves. I'm like, no, I don't know. But that hasn't been my experience. Chris, let's keep introducing Chris. Let's keep making the audience care about Chris Ruden and why they want to keep listening to you today.
So for me, I was born with a disability, 2 fingers on my left hand and a shorter left arm. I usually have super cool prosthetic arms, but they're kind of scattered all over the place right now. I hid my disability for almost 20 years and up until a few years ago. In the meantime, I also broke a world record, was on a TV show with The Rock, and did some pretty cool stuff. But in that process, I kind of figured out what I wanted to do with my life, which was not only sharing my story, but sharing a message that was impactful, but also made me income in the process. And over the last few years, I've been able to take that from eating, whatever I could, living with family to try and make it by, to making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, speaking and sharing stories that are impactful for people and organizations. So now I speak for a living. I used to get in trouble to speak in class, and now I get paid for it.
So your story is exactly what made me reach out to you, because I was inspired by it. I was moved by it. And it opened up a number of questions. And I know I even asked you one off the air before we even just tuned in around the word disability. And I'm just going to jump right into this with you, Chris. I didn't know how to address it with you. I didn't know if I was to call it a disability, if I was to use the word ability, able-bodied. I didn't know what word to use, Chris. And you said to me, Keith, we can use the word disability. I'm okay with it, which you made me feel really comforted and at ease. But I suspect, Chris, there's a lot of people like Keith out there that don't know the kind of terminology we should be able to use with somebody who has a disability like yourself. Chris?
I think the issue is we've stigmatized so many conditions and words that we're afraid to say things. Like we're afraid to say things like disabled, like black, like gay. None of those words are bad, but somehow we've come to learn that it's bad to say that. Don't say that out loud. You gotta whisper it. No, disability is a thing. Like color is a thing. It's okay to say what things are, and that's reclaiming the word and destigmatizing what society has kind of said as disabled means broken. Synonym for disability: weak, broken, useless, helpless. Like none of those things are true. Disability is just disability, and it's protected in different countries with different scenarios. So I'm never ashamed of the word because it's just part of who I am. It's not who I am. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. Absolutely does. Was there not maybe I'll put it in quotes, the woke era that has been around us for the last, and we're not going to politicize the conversation, but I'll just put it in quotes. The woke era has moved us towards using words like accessibility, not disability, right? And I'm hearing from you that no, Keith, it's okay for us to use the word disability because I'm okay.
So accessibility would more so determine the ability to access the same things that everyone has access to. So a building not having a ramp for accessibility for physically disabled people that require that, you have access to the building that someone who has a disability might not. Accessibility could be a website that doesn't have enough contrast. So people who are low vision, they wouldn't be able to see that. So accessibility would be availability of inclusion to everyone.
Yes.
Disability would describe the condition or situation of the person itself. So it's never like which one's more important. It's like, how do we create true inclusion where we don't have to say these words at all anymore?
Yeah. Okay.
Because then we're just humanity. And that's the ultimate goal, is to get rid of diversity, get rid of inclusion, get rid of all this stuff.
Oh man.
Because we don't even have to talk about it anymore. That's part of my job, and part of what I speak on is disability inclusion and language and all this. But eventually the goal would be to get rid of all of it because it's normalized, and we're fighting stigma, and nothing can be normalized when stigma still exists.
You're speaking my language. I'm a big fan of the word human.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of preaching the word human, because that's really what I want to, that's really what you are to me, is that you're a human being with fear, with emotions, with your own story and your own journey. And you know, unfortunately or fortunately, I guess it depends on how you look at it, we just put labels on our journey, right? And your role right now is to remove some of those labels, isn't it, Chris?
Absolutely. So you have to understand, your story is not the story. And
Mm-hmm.
we confuse that a lot. We
Mm-hmm.
confuse the story with our story. Your version of life is not the version of life. But when we auto apply our experiences and our filter on other people's, it can be dehumanizing. It can be stigmatizing. It can be limiting. Well, I went through that hardship and I didn't have a problem, so you shouldn't have a problem. It's like apples to oranges, apples to oranges. You know, it's not a sensitivity thing or a woke thing. It's a humanity thing. And human doesn't mean Keith. Human doesn't mean Chris. Human means human. And seeing multiple sides to a story and understanding that your version is not correct, it's just correct you.
Oh man, I love that, Chris. And I'm so inspired right now in this first few minutes. The world is moving to opinions matter most. I don't like you because you think the sky is blue, while I think the sky is red, and all of a sudden we just don't like each other. Yeah, you're human and I'm human, and we somewhere along the way in the last 10 years, we have lost the ability to have a human conversation, to say, well, no, Keith, actually, I think the color of the sky might be a little different shade than you think it is, and I want to tell you why I think that way. Oh, okay, Chris, I hear your point of view. I want to express to you my point of view. And I know some would say, well, Keith, you're so naive with how you're thinking, and you are kumbaya with human. And part of me thinks you're drinking the same Kool-Aid I am. How do you address somebody who looks at you and I thinking, Keith, Chris, you guys are so fucking naive with your humanity stuff. Come on, it's not how the world really works.
I think the true definition of naive is thinking your version is correct. There is no conversation when it's just judgment and debate. It's gone from being able to converse, and that's why I love philosophy, the ability to discuss multiple points of view without trying to say one is right or wrong. Defending a point is different than knowing that you're right, and sometimes knowing that you're right is just support for your internal narrative. Otherwise, your internal world would collapse.
Yeah.
You have to prove your rightness, even if you're wrong. Is there a possibility you're wrong? Is there a possibility there's another way to look at this? Of course there is. But when we tell ourselves there's not, we create a very jaded, one-sided world. And it's not being naive. It's being closed-minded and having a fixed mindset to internal growth, or fixed mindset to just seeing other perspectives. There's no humanity in exclusion. There's no humanity in a secular point of view. So openness, some might consider naive. I would consider that a person of the world.
It's interesting because I sometimes consider my point of views out there, because and what I mean by out there, just in terms of the naivety of wanting humans just to be able to get along and have a conversation and be able to agree to commit or agree to disagree and have a good dialogue. And it seems more and more difficult these days. Wherever you look, right? You got to go find a place to drink somebody else's Kool-Aid, or go look for enlightening conversations that you can have elsewhere. But it's certainly something that's why when I started the show in the lab, it was important to me that I was able to have enlightening, empowering, interesting conversations with a point of view that I might disagree with you, but let's dialogue about it, let's debate about it, let's discuss it, right? And that's what I've thoroughly enjoyed about the people I've met here. Chris, you said something a few moments ago that struck me when you introduced yourself, and you said your journey, you hid from your disability. It wasn't until you recognized that you were able to make money from it. Now, I'm going to ask you a pointed question. Have there been people that maybe have accused you of exploiting that? Or have you ever?
So it's funny. It's funny that you say that.
Yourself with exploiting your disability?
I've personally never had that point of view, and I don't think anyone has had the balls to like say that to me directly. But I do see how it's easy to discredit success when you're like, oh, he's only successful because he had a disability, and that's why people want to listen. And then people see a fitness, successful fitness business person. Oh, they're only successful because they have a great body. And then you see a person who's built a 7-figure company. They're only successful because they knew about business. At a certain point, you have to ask, how many excuses do you need to remove responsibility from the stuff you need to do? My disability was the hardest part of my life, and my mindset around my disability, it nearly took my life. At that point, no one would have said, oh, that the disability is the benefit. People they cherry pick information.
Mm-hmm.
So it all serves to create distance between what they're not doing and what the other person is doing. And it's a way to create that distance and be like, see, that's why I did it. That's why I can't do it, because he has that. And it's this conditional philosophy of, if I had that, I would be successful too. Well, if all people with disability made $20,000 an hour, that would mean 25% of the world, which has a disability. That's what, 2 billion people? 2 billion people on this world. Every person with a disability you see would be making $20,000 an hour. Something tells me those stats are off.
Yeah. I asked you the question, Chris, suspecting this was going to be your answer, because I'm suspecting most people, well, we both know most people just find an excuse not to find success.
Of course.
Right? So you heard my monologue, which is inviting people to unlock the knowledge in your head. I don't see you as exploiting your disability. I see you going, no, this is my story. This is my narrative. This is my opportunity to take my knowledge, my experience, share it with the world, and monetize it. That to me is smart. That's good business, frankly, right? That's saying, this is who I am. There's other people like me that I can inspire, I can share, I can help them move forward. And I'm going to find the courage in myself, Chris Ruden, to do that. So I applaud you for looking in the mirror and in your journey to recognize that you were an inspiration and not the other to the audience.
I think, so fully transparent, I just submitted my manuscript for my second book to a huge publisher, and it's being launched in September, but my whole mind is on everything we're talking about. So it's funny, a lot of the topics you're bringing up are very recently relevant, but there is a term that I focus on called functional fixedness. And a lot of people have something that happens in their life, and the way they look at it is so limiting that they can't see the other side. And it happened for me with my disability. I saw it as a limitation, a hardship, a pain. And there's nothing good that comes out of pain and hardship and all of that. So I just lived this glass ceiling of a potential where I was the broken kid. It's kind of like there's a bug in your house and all you have is a can of Febreze or a can of spray that's not bug spray. And you want to kill the bug, but you're like, I don't have bug spray, so I don't know what to do. And like, you could either spray the bug with whatever you have, or you can hit it, or you can step on. You could do so many things. But the functional fixedness tells us, if I don't have bug spray, I can't kill the bug. That's what happened with me, until I changed that functional fixedness. And I said, hey, what can I do with where I'm at that might be slightly outside of the box? And I was like, maybe I could use my story as a vessel for a message. okay, people are listening. Now I turned my health issues into wealth issues, which is really weird. You know, that same issue that killed me helped. And we see this over and over and over again. The obstacle is the way. Ryan Holiday or any stoicism or any philosophy talks about what originally hurts you can help, and what could help you can hurt. It's not the thing, it's not the tool, it's how we use it, and how I was using it to beat myself up instead of help other people.
Yeah. And how did that light go on for you? Like what was that low point in your life? I'm a big fan, Chris, of the moment behind the moment. So I'm not only going to ask you of that moment where the light went on, and I'm only going to suspect it was a low point in your life. But then there was even a deeper moment that you had to act.
So I'm a big believer in moments, multiple moments. So the compound effect of multiple moments. I don't think life always exists in this like Disneyfication of the one bell, you know.
I
For me,
agree.
there was lots of low moments that kind of dug at me. And I talk about, you know, my mom a lot, where she was a nurse, and I always lied to her. She would say, "How was your day?" And I was getting bullied constantly at school, and I would always say it was great because I never wanted to see her hurt. You know, I was embarrassed that she had a kid that looked like, you know. And there was one day where I got like really, really bad, like picked on, got humiliated by the girl that I wanted to ask out. And she was making fun of my hand in front of the class, calling me like claw boy and all this stuff. So going home and pretty much losing it on her and telling her like, why'd you make me like this? Like, you're a nurse, you help everyone, but you couldn't even help me, your own son. And just seeing her break down and apologize to me, like that was rough. You know, seeing your mom be apologetic or sorry for something she didn't mean to do. That was one of those moments that kind of led to like, okay, I have to do something. It took years after that to make a decision, but as I got into speaking, I felt more confident in my ability to help people, but I was still hiding my hand on stage when I first started. I wore a glove over my hand for 17 years. And as I got into speaking, I always hid it, but I was on stage, people would see that I have a glove. And there was this one little girl that I spent all day with. I also have type 1 diabetes, which is an autoimmune disease. And I spent all day with this little girl, and she was amazing. You know, like she was like 10 years old, and she followed me around like a puppy. And I remember we were walking down this long corridor at this event, and she stood on my left side, which I never really let people stand on because I hid my hand. And she grabbed my hand over the glove, and she was just swinging it carelessly. And I froze, and I looked at her, and I was speaking at this event, and she looked up at me, and she was like, "It's okay. You don't have to hide around me." And that broke me, dude. That broke me. I was like, 2,000 people are here to see me speak, and she's the only one who saw me. And that was one of those like pivotal moments where I was like, I gotta stop this. I can't keep hiding in plain sight. And so many people do that. So many people have their mask or their glove or like whatever it is. And I found that whether you're in an organization or a relationship or just yourself, your life, so many people are hiding behind that one thing, and they sweep that one thing under the rug. And the rug is fucking huge at this point. There's an elephant under the rug, and you just live around it. And the moment I pulled that rug off and I kind of showed the world like, hey, I'm tired of hiding my hand, I made a video on YouTube. It went viral. 7 million views, led to The Rock calling me and inviting me on a TV show. And like, it led to all this cool stuff. Yes. But cooler than that was being able to go to a grocery store without hiding my hand, you know, to live my life without being the guy who hides his hand. At 27 years old, I became Chris, which is pretty damn crazy.
Yeah. Chris, I forgot the box of Kleenex for this one. And to my audience that's seeing me flip the cameras out, it's because Uncle Keith here is moving his fingers around his eye to wipe the moisture out. Chris, thanks for sharing that with us and with me. It's amazing and incredible, the power of a child, isn't it? And their ability to see you as a human being, right? That's all she saw. She saw Chris the human, and she's like, and that's it. And that's what I love when again, call me naive, but this little human being, no different than you and I, just that we have experience over her. She saw this human being on stage. Maybe she saw your fear, right? Maybe she saw that fear within you that only she could see, and maybe you couldn't even see it yourself, Chris. And she just gave you that comfort to be yourself.
It's pretty crazy to think like if adults were more like children, less guarded, less jaded, less cynical, and more just like free in how they think and how they express. Sometimes some of the stuff they say is a little crazy, you know, but
Yeah.
I think it's unfortunate because as adults, we kind of train ourselves to become more fearful. A kid falls, they laugh and get back up. An adult falls and they're done forever. They quit. It's over. If you watch a baby or a toddler start to learn how to walk, the amount of falling and mistakes that happens, it's inevitable and endless. But when an adult makes a mistake, they go to build a business, they go to do something new, and it doesn't work the first time or the second time, it's done. They're quit. It's over. We've regressed as adults to become less resilient. but more resilient on social media. We have
Yes.
to look resilient, but
Yes.
we aren't actually resilient. And we're more worried about perception. And kids don't give a shit about perception.
No. No.
It is what it is. They call it what it is. And we say it is what it is, but it also isn't what it isn't. It's not this big thing that we make it. But somehow we've learned that feelings are facts. Opinions, assumptions, feelings are not facts. But when you live as if what you feel is true to the core, of course you're never going to change.
Well, and that's the problem with that's what the problem the society wakes up with every day, right? As we were talking about moments ago, that I read this on the social media platform. I feel that it's true. Hence it's true. My emotions are this way. I'm now in a tunnel. That's it.
Yeah. It's one thing to validate emotion. Emotions exist. The emotion is real.
Mhm.
The truth or certainty is not. And certainty gets a lot of people in trouble. If we, again, part of my book is talking about replacing certainty with curiosity. If instead of being certain, we said, how can I? How could I? What could I? Instead of this is that, for sure, 100% this, we'd have so many more options, and it seems so trivial and so simple, but why do you need something complex to fix your situation? Why does complexity determine quality?
Yeah.
It's wild.
I love the other C word, which is curiosity, Chris. Curiosity has been the fuel of this show. Curiosity has been the fuel of my life, right? I love to get off the beaten path and then go even further off the second path you find, and then go even be curious along the next one and go see what's there, which then leads me to, I really want to stay in this moment with this young child on the stage. So this moment happens. You then get off stage and your day is unfolding around you. You've just had a life-changing moment. Chris, take me through that evening, that trip home, going to bed that night, waking up the next morning. And I'm serious, because right now your life is changing in that 12-hour period of time. Like, you've been revealed.
It's full of resistance and avoidance and numbness and touching back on it, and like kind of towing the water multiple times. And it took, again, not a Disney moment. It took many days, if not weeks, to wrestle with that thought and feeling of that situation. And when it finally, when dominoes started to like kind of fall and line up, I got approved for a prosthetic arm, which I said, if I ever got approved for a prosthetic arm, I would stop hiding my hand, kind of knowing that it's near impossible to get approved for one in the United States.
Really?
Yeah, my prosthetic arm is over $100,000. When I got approved, most people would have been jumping for joy.
You were scared.
I said, oh shit, because I knew I made a promise to myself. And I thought back to that moment with that little girl, and I was like, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. Like,
yeah,
this is the moment that I always hoped would come, but always hoped would not happen.
It was a be careful what you wish for moment.
It was terrible, dude. And I made a video to take my glove off, like my coming out story,
Yeah.
At that time, the girl I was with for 4 years, she edited my video. And that was the first time she saw my hand.
Come on.
First time. I posted that video and I went to sleep. And I was like, that was my moment. I did it. I felt so good. Jumped in the deep end.
Yes.
I woke up to millions of views on YouTube, trending on Reddit. It was the best thing that ever happened, because it forced me to jump in the deep end. And like so often we need that leap. We need that moment.
Yes.
I tried to toe the water way too many times,
Yes.
And that leap was the best thing ever, because it forced me to start. It didn't fix everything. There's no fix everything leap, but it forced me to start. And in starting, I continued. And in continuing, that habit of continuing was met with good feelings. And that good feeling reinforced the new habit. And it was this infinity loop of habit feeling. And it just reinforced moving forward. And then it reinforced curiosity of, well, if I could do this, that thing that I said I could never do in my life, what else?
You must have felt so empowered.
Oh, dude, it was the craziest thing ever. And I ran with that motivation, and I ran with that momentum. I was like, this is the moment people pray to happen, and it doesn't happen. You make it happen. You create this scenario, the environment for it to happen. You don't pray for fire. You get to work. You have to build it, and you have to like cultivate it and create an environment for fire to grow. It was happening, and I was like, I gotta run. And that led to doing all the stuff from TV shows and magazines. And it was really cool because I leveraged social media, and I was fortunate to be at that position. But regardless of the social media and all that, it put me in a position to say, what would I do with my life if I didn't feel that I was broken?
I go back to my exploitation question, Chris. And I would rephrase the question now to you, or perhaps make it a statement that this actually was your responsibility. It wasn't a burden. It was your responsibility to, pardon me, but to get your shit together, to get on stage and show the world the power of Chris Ruden and your ability to inspire others. And it just took you some time in your life to find it out.
So I want to touch on that because you said two things that are really important to me. One, responsibility. Let's really look at the word responsibility. Let's break it up. Responsibility.
Yes.
Ability to respond.
Yes.
I finally chose the ability to respond. I had the ability the entire time, but I finally chose to do it, you know? And like you said, that was my timeline. My timeline is different from everyone else. So many people in the disabled community are like, you should have done this a long time ago. You should have done this. You should. There's no such thing as should. Should is a made up construct on someone else's timeline that, you know how easy it is to tell someone what they should do when you're not in it? You do know because you give the best advice that you don't take. You know that. You know that very much. If someone comes to you with your exact problem and different names in the situation, you could solve it for Tom, Dick, and Harry, no problem. You put your name in that situation, like, whoa, that's different. It's different because it requires responsibility on your end, and it requires risk and faith and a leap and action and consistency and ability to fail. But for someone else, you don't care. You don't care. And how do I know that? How do I know that? When you get a flat tire, what are some feelings you get, Keith? What are some negative feelings that come up?
Oh, you get frustrated. You get angry. You're like, oh man, what an inconvenience in my life right now. I'm just frustrated.
Cool. Perfect. None of that is true.
No.
How do I know? Because when you drive by someone with a flat tire, you don't feel shit.
Yeah.
It's not the flat tire. It's the fact that it happened.
Yes.
And that's the problem, is it's never the issue. It's the fact that it's happened to you and where you're in your life right now. Because if you got a flat tire on the way to your step parents' house, you'd be happy as hell. You'd be like, thank God I don't have to go to that party, you know? Yeah. So it's more so like framing. And I've really come to understand a lot of the issues when framed a little bit more effectively. I don't believe in good or bad. It's more effective or ineffective.
Uh-huh.
When framed more effectively, you can make more effective choices. And the compound effect of those effective choices lead to bigger changes. For me, the biggest choice was taking my glove off my hand.
Mm-hmm.
I was fortunate because as I started speaking, people saw me hiding, and I allowed them that authenticity or vulnerability to see me come out of my shell on stage, so to speak. So showing people, living by example, not just leading by example. People were able to be a part of that journey, so they connected with me as a person. Most of us think we need to have already climbed Mount Everest to speak. We have to have already done something great to speak. We have to have already been there. We have to be the pinnacle to be able to speak. I was speaking before I ever showed my disability. I didn't start speaking when I was successful. I didn't start speaking when I was already famous and had hundreds of thousands of followers and on TV. I didn't start speaking then. My first ever magazine entry was in like the local newspaper made by these two ladies who their office was a shitty little house, you know? And I'm like, it was so cool to me to get in the local newspaper.
Yeah.
That from that to being on a 2-page spread of People magazine right next to like Pink and all these famous people, I'm like,
Yeah.
crazy, but that didn't happen overnight. And I didn't wait until I was successful to start speaking, to start doing this business, to start impacting and sharing. I did it along the way. And most people tell themselves this conditional philosophy of I'll speak once I get successful, once I sell the company, once I climb Mount Everest. I will build this business once I do X. And it's like, you've got it backwards. Do it in the process of trying to climb that mountain. Do it in the process of trying to get famous or whatever you want to call it, whatever your goal is. Do it in the process. Don't wait to like cross the finish line to start running the race. You know, that doesn't make sense.
I opened the show with Chris was going to teach me how to make $100,000 an hour speaking. And it's this conversation has been awesome because the way that the narrative has started and where it's going, we're segueing right to it, which is spectacular to me. Because what you're talking about, Chris, is your journey. And we're living in an era now where this idea of personal branding is more powerful than ever. In a world of AI agents and fakeness, being human is more valuable than ever. And what you're really saying to the audience is just go be yourself. Just step up and go be yourself and put one foot behind the other. Build in the open, share your experiences in the open, because there are people that want to hear from you that don't know how to do it. And just by you taking that one step, you're going to inspire somebody else. That's what you're saying, isn't it, Chris?
I think it's important to not just be yourself, but to be your best self or your ideal self. What does your ideal self look like? How do they make decisions? What would your ideal self do in the morning? What would your ideal self do when they're having a struggle or a conflict? How would your ideal self talk to themselves in their head? How would they communicate out loud? How would they manage problems? You don't need to change. And that's the problem. You don't change. You change your habits. But you as a person, like me, as Chris, never changed. My disability never changed. I didn't change. I just changed my habit.
I think you're the perfect metaphor, if I can interrupt, Chris, because I love the idea of it's like a superhero where the glove came off and the reveal is there.
Yeah,
Like
it was always the person. Like,
yeah, like there's no fucking grayness there. It's actually black and white. It's like, oh, that's what's behind the curtain. Yeah.
It's like Superman taking off the glasses. You're like, I had no clue that was him. And like,
That's
everyone does. Everyone knew that was him, but him.
Yes.
But him. And that's the issue is we've tied identity to habit.
That's why when I saw your story in my feed, I'm like, I got to talk to this guy. So audience, I was knocking on Chris's door for a while. I go, I got to talk to Chris. Got to talk to Chris.
I appreciate that because this kind of conversation is really important. And yes, we're going to get to the very specifics of like how to make money, how to make the $10,000 in 30 minutes, or how to get paid $300 a minute to speak. That's all very real stuff. That's what I do for a living. That is my job.
But I think
this part is important. You know,
it is important because what you're leading up to, I think, is you're saying to the audience, if you want to make 10 grand an hour, I'm just going to put it out there. Keith, you got to get on stage and be naked.
You do. You really have to
be a raw human being, be naked. Just like Chris,
have to be your raw, authentic, ideal self. You know, the mistakes you've made in the past don't have to be repeated. And I talk to people all the time that I'll ask you, are you a morning person or a night person?
Morning.
A lie. By now, you should know anytime I'm asking you a question, I'm going to make you lie. Because here's the thing. You're not a morning person. You just have a habit of waking up early.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny because I was actually going to answer the question. Well, a bit of both these days because I'm starting a business and I find myself some days burning the candle at both ends.
So it's not an identity. It's a habit.
Yeah.
Because, I'm not a gym person like you. I'm not a gym person. I just go to the gym.
It's what you do. It's like air, right?
You are not what you do. You can change that at any. I'm not a motivated person. I'm not a driven person. I'm lazy. No, you're not lazy. You've had a habit of being lazy in the past, but it's not who you have to continue to be right now.
Right,
you're not a prisoner of what you've done. You have a position or an opportunity to change that. And for me, I had that opportunity for 17 years. I just never took it.
Right.
Organizations that I work with, people, we all have those opportunities, but we get limited by attaching identity to habit. And at any point, habit can change. Identity cannot. I cannot change who I am. I cannot change the fact that I have a disability or a disease. Like I can't change that. But what I can change is my habit.
It's really timely to hear you say that for my personal life, Chris. I was saying to my wife yesterday. So for really the last 20 years of my life, I was a startup founder and the CEO of a social media company. And, we went our separate ways in 2021. And for the last couple of years, I've been resorting out my new life. And it's been the last, 6 to 8 months of building the Business Athlete Performance Lab. I'm building these new habits, these new routines. And because the last 15 years I've been doing, I had a different identity. I had a different job. I was something else. And I'll be honest with you, I struggled with that for a long time to get rid of that identity. And it's taken me a long time. It actually wasn't until last weekend. True story, Chris. I said to my wife on Saturday or Sunday, I said, wow, I feel the least stress I've had in months right now because I feel like I'm establishing a new habit and a new routine that fits my life for today, not the last 15 years. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. It's really hard to untangle identity from habit.
Yeah.
And until you do that, you're always going to feel guilty about changing your habits.
Yes.
You're always going to feel some sort of shame or guilt or blame, like, I shouldn't do that. Again, should is attaching an identity to a habit. It's, I should be farther along. You're making that up. Like, that's not true. Feelings are not facts. Even if you feel like you should be farther along, it's not a fact and it doesn't help. So if it's not a fact and it doesn't help you, would you suggest someone you love follow the advice of that's not helpful? And it's not a fact? No, you have a responsibility, not just a responsibility, but an ability to respond to that and say, hey, even though I feel this feeling of should, I know it's not true and I know it's not going to help me. So instead, I'm going to understand the habit is what I need to change, not the identity. I'm not broken, so I don't need to change. My habits aren't effective and those need to change.
I'm appreciative of your comments around should, Chris.
Can't stand that word.
I did a monologue. I would invite you to check it out here. It was last week, actually. It was 7 minutes or so. It's in the feed there. And I ranted about should. Like, who the fuck owns should? Who's shoulding? Shoulding who? Like, who owns should? Should who? Says who? Who says should? I hate it. I've spent enough money on therapists in my lifetime and psychologists who have taught me to get rid of should out of my vocabulary.
Yeah. It's designed to make you feel good topically,
No.
but it's the mechanism of it is
Negative.
actually undermining you. It
100%.
sounds good. It sounds motivating. Like, oh, I should be ahead. It sounds like, oh, yeah. But what it's really doing is just shaming you and reminding you of where
Yes.
you're not.
Right.
And one of my favorite quotes, I'm sorry, I can't remember who it is. They said it might've been Mark Manson. The desire for a positive experience is a negative experience.
The desire for a positive experience
Is a negative experience. Wanting something you don't
Yes,
have
because the
is a
desire.
negative experience.
Yes, it is.
Even if it's meant to motivate you,
Mhm.
the desire, the yearning for something you don't have
Mhm.
is a negative experience. So it's not oh, you shouldn't want to go higher. It's not that. But when you constantly say, I just need this, I just need this, I just want this toxic self-help cycle of
Yeah.
I need to fix it. I need to fix, broken, broken, broken. It's like, holy shit, if you're constantly fixing something that's broken and it never gets fixed, was it even broken in the first place?
Right.
You got to ask, like, for so long I thought I needed to fix my disability. I can't fix what's not broken. It's not, I'm not broken. It's normal, you know? And we talk about, oh, I wish things would go back to normal. How many times have you heard people say stuff like that?
Wow.
I
Yeah.
wish I was born in this year period. So you remember when people had to wear masks and then they were like, the government is trying to control us and
Yes.
all this and the
Yeah.
conspiracy. You remember that, right?
100%.
Actually, what I'm talking about is the Spanish flu in 1930, but we had the same thing happen in the other one. And it was just as normal as it was recently, as pandemics are always going to be normal. So is fire, flood, success, failure, good, bad. All of that is normal. So there's no such thing as going back to normal when everything that happens is normal.
Mhm.
Normal always exists. Ups and
Normal.
downs, highs and lows always exist. So there's no going back. You only have what you have. And your version of going back to normal or how it used to be is so zoomed in that you can only see this speck of good and you're cherry picking what's good and throwing out what's bad. And that's not real. It's just not.
So I want you to teach me how I can make myself some money speaking. There's a lot of guys like me, a lot of women like me, a lot of guys like me, a lot of humans like me. There's the word. A lot of humans like me that are like, hey, I have something to say. I would like to be compensated for what I have to say. How would Chris Ruden guide me to being compensated? Hey, I downloaded your lead magnet, by the way.
Thank you.
Hey, if you guys want to learn how, you guys got to go to chrisruden.com to get the lead magnet. I think it's chrisruden.com. Go to his website, download the lead magnet. He'll teach you what he's telling me right now. But Chris, how do I go make some money speaking? And I'm being honest to God, serious. I would love to go and continue to build my brand, telling my story.
So first, I always start by crushing hopes and dreams before I can rebuild it. You have to clear the land before you can build, right?
Okay.
So when someone says, I have something to say and I want to get paid for it, I respond with, I have touched a basketball before, so I want to be a professional athlete.
Yeah.
I've thrown a ball. Why? I want to get paid for it. I want $1 million contract. And you would look at them like, are you for real? Like,
Yeah.
okay, what have you done? Nothing. You play basketball on the weekends? Oh, okay, that's enough. So it's always funny to me to hear that. Everyone has a story. Okay, everyone has something to say. That doesn't automatically equal you getting. Okay, so there's a lot of work that goes, but at the core, one of my first ever mentors, when I first got him, he wrecked my life. And I do this with every speaker I potentially work with. I have them tell me their story. I would do this for you if we were off air, and you would tell me this heartfelt story of what you went through, all of your struggles, and how you've come out on top. Normal man and whole story. Started off okay, went to shit, now it's good. And I would look you in your eye, as I do with all of my speakers, and I say, so what? And everyone crumbled because they pour their heart out. And I say, so what? And they don't know what to say. And it happened to me because I had no clue what to say. I've never had someone say that. And he was like, what does that do for me? And I was just like, God damn. I was like, what do I do with this? And he's like, explaining to me, your story doesn't matter. What your story does for other people matter. And what I've taken that to mean is your story is not your mess. Your story is a vessel for the message. It doesn't matter that you climbed Mount Everest. It matters that you can package that in a way to teach a specific message.
I climbed Kilimanjaro.
You have to have that core message, and that core message has to benefit the ideal audience that you. So we reverse engineer it. Who is your ideal audience and what is the biggest problem that they're facing? When you can come up with that, how do you give them a solution for that situation? And then how do you use your story as a vessel to deliver that solution to their problem. That is what a good speaker does. A good speaker does not just have something to say. They have a solution for their ideal audience. You have to have solutions. Otherwise, you're just saying feel good stuff. Oh, let me guess. Let me guess. Keith, I am a mind reader right now, and I'm going to guess your story and everyone else who wants to be a speaker right now. You went through some shit, you got over some shit, and more shit's coming. You have the exact same story as the question. How are you going to develop a message that actually helps those people in their situation? So I would first have you start with a I help who do what statement, a positioning statement. I help who do what so that they can, for me, a high level. I help people and organizations see their world without limits. Now, that could be through disability inclusion training, that could be through change management, or that can be overcoming adversity. I help small organizations manage cultural change so that they can have a more inclusive and productive work environment. What does that say about my disability?
Nothing.
What does that say about my world record in powerlifting or hanging out with The Rock? Nothing.
No.
Because it doesn't matter about me.
No, it doesn't.
I don't matter. What matters is that my ideal client has a problem and I'm giving them the solution. Speakers, especially in the beginning, make it all about them. And just like in marketing, it can't be all about you. But we make that mistake when we go to speak. So if you want to get paid similar to what I do, I charge anywhere between $10,000 to $25,000 to speak. And sometimes that's for 30 minutes. Sometimes that's for 45 minutes, occasionally 6. On top of that, we'll do workshops. We'll do continuing programs that include like consulting. And I'll build out 5 and 6 figure proposals and systems for people, organizations, and this is what I do. On average, I work a busy week. If I'm not writing a book like I was, would be about 10 to 15 hours a week.
Love it. Do you ever look in the mirror, Chris, some days and say, like, what the fuck? Like, holy smokes.
All the time. Dude, this life is crazy because I've dreamed about getting here almost with certainty that I wouldn't get here. Yeah, I got the dream car. I got the stuff. You know, I'm like, again, don't get me wrong. I'm not making millions and millions of dollars, but I make the best money in my family. I have enough to live the life I want with the flexibility I want, with the lack. My goal is not one of those squeeze the drop, every drop of optimization of time and efficiency. I'm not that kind of hustle work culture bro. That's not me. My thing is, how can I work this amount or less and make this amount or more? That's my philosophy. I value quality of life. I don't need more because more is not a place. More doesn't exist. More is a carrot on the stick. And unfortunately, a lot of entrepreneurs have this addiction to more. And it's this intangible place that they'll be chasing for the rest of their lives. For me, this is my personal opinion, my personal philosophy. You don't have to agree with it. I love being able to have breakfast with my girlfriend whenever I want. I love having the freedom of being able to live my life how I want. To be able to work harder some days or less some days, or to take trips, or to just work for 2 weeks straight. I have the flexibility and situation to do that because of how I've created my life. We've lost sight of the idea that you could create your life how you want to versus you're supposed to create your life how it should. Again, the should thing. With speaking, if you have a core message, if you have something that you can help people with, maybe you're not sure what that is. Let me help you find that right now. The you 5 years ago, what did you need most that you now have? That's what you can teach. That's what you're an expert in.
This is so revelatory and so helpful for me, Chris, because I do have a story, but so does everybody else. And it is a so what story, but I did something about it. So actually I do have something to offer to the world, and I got my own lead magnet coming out here next month. It's, how to solve, so I climbed Kilimanjaro, and in order for me to accomplish some big, hairy, audacious goals in my life, I wrapped my goals around 100 days. And then I broke them down into 10-day blocks. And then I broke it down into knowing that if I just achieved 90% of my 10 days, I'm still going to achieve it. So I took 100 days, and I only had to, work 9 days out of 10, and I still achieved my goal. So that worked for me. So I wrapped that up into a solution, and I got it coming out. And you probably heard in my monologue, we're launching the Business Athlete Performance Lab Academy, which is going to help people whose problem is like, I have a big goal I want to achieve, but I don't know how to start. I want to start a business. I want to go climb a mountain. I have a disability, but I don't know how to talk about it. Okay, well, let's take the next 100 days and let's teach you how to talk about it. Let's day one's going to happen every 10 days. And I'm going to help you, because what I've also learned, Chris, there's a lot of people that offer help. But where I've made my living and I've built my brand, Chris, is on showing up. And the magic that happens by just showing up every single day for me has been just spectacular. And I have been able to monetize my life by helping other people just show up. It sounds goofy, but shows up. Go ahead.
Can we do some live coaching real quick?
Please, please.
So, who do you help right now with your business athlete? Who do you help? Like, what is your ideal customer profile?
Yeah. So we're talking to creators, talking to entrepreneurs.
And what do you help them do?
We're helping them find their next. We're helping them, be accountable to achieving a big goal in their life.
By breaking down into 100 days at a time, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Solving a
so
big goal. I have a big goal, Keith, that I want to achieve, and I'm struggling to achieve it.
what do those goals usually look like?
I want to run a marathon. I want to start a business. I want to go climb a mountain.
Perfect. Do you have a brand hook?
Well, yes, I got a few of them going on. What do
Okay,
you mean?
yeah. So let's just say, like, in my head, I'm like, hashtag 100 days away. And maybe that's something you go
Exactly.
with, like,
Yes. Yeah.
100
100%.
days away.
Yeah.
You talk to like people who want this one big one-off goal.
Yeah.
Say we're going into speaking. Okay, you are helping with change management, with urgency, frequency, and consistency while just showing up.
Yes.
You're giving them multiple day ones starting over in 10 blocks.
Yes.
10-day blocks.
Yes.
So effectively, you could help organizations manage change through 10-day blocks. You help organizations manage change 100 days away.
Oh,
You know,
interesting. Yeah.
so
Okay. Yeah.
now you could speak to organizations. Let's go a little bit deeper. You could
Please.
speak to HR companies or project management companies by implementing the 100-day away challenge to implement change. That's just one sector. So now you can speak on change management, project management. What about overcoming adversity?
Of
Teaching
course.
people in your organizations how to overcome adversity 100 days at a time, 100 days away from accomplishing your biggest goal in your organization, in your personal life, in your professional life. So now we have multiple profitable topics. And that's what I kind of break it up. You have to have
Yeah.
an actionable message, you have to have a profitable topic, and then you have to have inbound and outbound marketing. So we'll talk about marketing in a second. Your actionable messages: here is the 100-day blueprint on
Mhm.
how to affect change
Yes.
and how to sustain change. So change is a huge component for you already. Now the profitable topics would be going on a speakers bureau website like Big Speak or something that's a major speakers bureau website and
Yes.
going through the topics. If the topic that you want to speak on isn't listed, more than likely it's not a profitable topic in general, because these companies get paid by booking their speakers to speak only on commission, which means they're only going to focus. They've done hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in research on which topics pay. So you're not going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on that research. Use the research that already exists. Could it work outside of these topics? Yeah, it could. But do you want to create more friction, or do you want to get into this process more effectively? That's what you would do. So when you find that profitable topic and you realize change management is a profitable topic, overcoming adversity, project management, time management, all of these are profitable topics for organizations. Well, now we have a brand hook, we have a positioning statement, we have an actionable message, we have the profitable topic, and now we just need to start marketing and making sure you have a speaker's reel that demonstrates you speak that. You don't have a speaker's reel? Not a problem at all. Why don't we find some local companies that you could say, hey, I usually charge $5,000 to speak, but I'll do it for free as long as you trade for a video. Now you're getting professional video for free to build a speaker's reel to start marketing for that new company you just started as a speaker. That's part of the process.
That's spectacular, Chris. Thank
That's
you.
part of the process.
That's so. There you go. I'm glad we got the recording going so that I can go back and listen to this free advice that I'm getting right now. Very, 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 very grateful. I guess in my mind, Chris, what I'm ultimately teaching a human being or an organization, because I think it's the hardest thing, and it's so timely right now, being February 19th. It's hard for people to be accountable. It's hard for people to show up every single day. And that's one thing, again, where that's my simple skill set. I show up every single day. And I believe as a human being, if you and I were working together as your accountability partner, you as a human, I'm saying, okay, Chris, I'll see you tomorrow at 6. Like, holy fuck, he's going to be there at 6. And then I'll see you the next day. And on that 7th day, you're feeling like, I don't want to show up, but fuck, he's there. So you're just going to show up because I'm already in the room. So yeah. I think human beings are led that way. They're like, well, Bilous is there. I got to go because he's already there.
So again, I didn't say what it was, but my book that's coming out in September is called The Art of Changing Course. It is all about the second of 3 steps is accountability.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And when we break down accountability, we have self accountability, we have external accountability, and then we have the communication piece. So you are creating scenarios that motivate you to keep going. And part of what you just said was, by you being their accountability partner, they are motivated to keep going.
Yes.
There are a few different effects, like the Hawthorne effect. When someone is watching you, you operate differently. When you know you have to check in, you operate different. One of the studies from the talent development agency showed that a person who sets a goal down has a 10% likelihood of achieving it. At the end of this study, a person who communicates with an accountability partner and sets a specific time to meet has a 95% chance of meeting that.
Yeah,
so to go from 10% in just having the goal, everyone on this call, everyone listening to this or who will listen to this has a goal.
Yes.
You're probably like me, and you have 35 to-do lists that
Yes.
you've recreated over and over and over in your phone, and you'll probably do another one tomorrow.
Yeah.
With all the stuff that you didn't do yesterday. Trust me, I'm yelling at myself through the camera right now. By not having that touch base point, what you're talking about, you decrease the likelihood of you getting to your goal by what, 90%? 85%. And that's pretty crazy. So I definitely respect what you're doing. The 100-day thing breaks it down into a digestible chunk. So when I look at all of the research that comes with changing behavior, habits,
Yes.
all of what you're saying is backed by, legitimate studies that show breaking habits into digestible moments that have accountability pieces. It's one thing to affect change. It's another thing to sustain change.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Affecting change is hard. And then we talk about, is it external change happening to you, or is it internal change that you are the catalyst yourself? That's arguably the hardest, because you have to be your own disruptor.
Yeah.
When we create a normal in our life, it's kind of like a thermostat for temperature. You could open the door and let the cold or warm air in. The thermostat's just going to work harder to go back to what's normal.
Chris, I want to be respectful of your time. As any good host always wants to make sure their guests get to their next appointment on time. I don't want to stop talking to you, be very frank with you, but I also want to be respectful of your time. So it's 5 minutes after our 60 minutes together. What is your hard stop?
I got another like 10. What time is it? Let me see.
So it's 2:05 Eastern.
2:05. Yeah, I got a good like 15 minutes left.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So Chris, we talk about accountability, and we talk about showing up, and we talk about the difficulty of doing that. And I lost my line of questioning as I was asking you this, because I was too concerned about the timing here. So it's funny. So I know now why producers are always in their hosts' ears, because it's like, we just got, the guy lost the question. Now I remember the question.
Perfect. Look at that.
The power of this microphone to hold me public accountable has been remarkable, Chris Ruden. Because when I get on the show every single day and I say something out of my mouth into my microphone, and I know either the world's listening or nobody's listening, it holds me accountable. And so some of my own research, I've read that 75, when you make a public statement about a goal, 70% chance you're going to achieve it. My ambition here with selling people in the lab our courses is that you publicly state your goal, you come join up, we're going to get you to 100% with your goal. That's really our ambition, right? Because I want to help Chris get there and help him get through those 100 days. But the power of this microphone, stating something publicly, has been really incredible to me as been starting this whole podcast. And I got to tell you that.
It's really cool because you get it. It's your cue.
Yes.
It's your cue. And it's also in a roundabout way, it's your reward once you post that podcast and people say, hey,
Yes.
I really love that, really helped me.
Yes.
And you're like, okay, I initiated by just having that trigger and that responsibility.
Yes.
And then I got the accountability of knowing like people are relying on this information. And then people came out to me and said they really love the information. That's a reinforced habit through and through. That habit's going to, the problem is when there's disruptors, how do you make sure that doesn't get affected, which there's always going to be disrupt. So how do you make sure you manage those disruptions? And it happens in speaking. It happens in all this. You're not immediately going to become a pro football player. You're not immediately going to become a pro speaker or a pro podcaster or whatever. You have to have the consistency and have digestible actions, which is why I'm really big on not attaching goals to outcomes, but rather to processes and understanding that processes change. So too many people are committed to the current process and that gets in the way of commitment to the overall mission. And the best way I can explain that is if you decide you're going to the gym 3 days a week and the gym closes for a week and you're like, now I'm not going to the gym because commitment was the gym.
Yeah.
Gym's closed, thus not going to gym.
Yeah.
But the real commitment was not going to the gym. It was being active.
Yes.
Why couldn't you work out with gallons of water at home?
Yeah.
Why couldn't you work out with pots in?
Yeah.
Why couldn't you grab your most hated stepchild and squat them?
Yeah.
You could do so many things, but instead we're so fixed on this one process that we don't understand there's so many other ways around it to get to the mission. So the process can change, but the mission does not.
I'm a big fan of first principles thinking. Big fan. Maybe to a fault sometimes. Like some people working with me are like, come on, Bill, let's just make a decision. I'm like, no, actually, we got to pause and look at this completely differently, because just because it's been done the same way for 100 years doesn't mean it has to be done the same way for the next 100 years.
Yep.
And I know that as a leader, I from time to time would be, I'm not using the word chastised, but questioned for it. But I believe that's how you progress and move life forward, by sometimes just pausing and erasing the entire slate and starting from fucking scratch.
I think it's important what you said, sometimes. And that's
Yes.
really, life has to be qualified. It
Yes.
has to be qualified with the maybes and with the sometimes. There still is required a level of urgency, because procrastination could be like a golden lace version
Yes.
of avoidance.
Real urgency though, Chris, not artificial urgency.
Yes,
I hate artificial urgency,
Yeah.
which is this whole idea that there's this deadline coming up, or I got to do something really urgent. And you're like, well, wait a minute, hold on a second. Is it really that urgent?
There's a difference between holding yourself accountable and maintaining the commitments you made to yourself.
Yes.
Is again, pointing fingers at myself, waiting too long for a commitment you made, then the time's coming up and now you have to rush, and now you have this urgency that's like stressful. Management is important. Self-management along with external accountability helps, but at the end of the day, even with external accountability, it's up to you.
Yes.
It is. If I hired you, it's not your job to make me do my stuff. It's your job to position me to do my stuff, but to not make me do my stuff. My success is my problem. You're helping me, but at the end of the day, I have to do what I need to do. And I think we forget that because we think we can pay a coach or a speaker coach or a personal trainer or a mentor. We think we can pay someone
For
to
the
run
magic.
the race for us.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
There's so many people, society today, and again, I don't mean to blame society, but what I see a lot of is a lot of people want to hang out at the finish line without running the race.
Shortcuts.
And trust me, I get it. I want that too. That'd be fantastic. If that existed, I would do the shit out of it.
You just told me you only work a couple days a week, Chris Ruden. So what the hell? You're the guy.
I had to do the long cut to get to the shortcut, you know, I had to do the years of work and wanting to quit and living on the brother's couch and hating every bit of it to get to the point where I can work 10 hours, you know?
Well, and I'd even challenge you, Chris, you had to go some pretty dark places with your mom and your own mirror. And
even before the coaching, like I had to survive middle school. Like that's enough. So again, all of this is storytelling, because at the end of the day, I went through some shit. I got over some shit and more shit's coming. I could choose to tell myself a worse story, or I could choose to tell myself a better story. But communication always happens through story. And if communication is vital for humanity, organization, success, and I can master communication, not only to tell a great story, like the art and science of telling a great story, but to deliver a message that an organization needs. If I can help them solve $1 million problem and they only pay me a tenth of that, who's really winning here?
Yeah.
You know, you have to bring value, but it's not just value. You have to bring solutions to people who need them. You have to bring solutions. And if you're able to package your stuff in a solution, you can speak. If you're already doing something that is solving something for someone else, you can package that in a form of speaking. And that form of speaking can make you money, directly or indirectly, whether it's getting paid to go on stage or going on stage and selling books or courses. There's so many different strategies and ways. At the end of the day, I truly believe the two skills that are vital for anyone, writing and speaking, those two skills, if you want to throw another one, video is like also super important, but those skills, when perfected, give you an opportunity to build any kind of business. And I don't care about business. Allows you to build any kind of life that you would more align. If you want a life where you can work less, if you want a life where you can work from home, if you want a life where you can have a side hustle on top of what you already do in your career, it doesn't matter. There's no one ideal way of life, but there are certain skills, Pareto principle type stuff, that if you just did a little bit in those areas, they would have massive. And speaking, I truly feel, is one of them.
Chris Ruden, today's discussion was the entire reason I started this show. You have been my perfect guest.
I appreciate that.
Well, I listen, I've had a lot of guests, and all my previous guests are going, wait a minute, Keith, you just told me I was your perfect guest. I'm making this statement because you encompass a lot of values and attributes that I wanted to bring to the table when I started this show. I want to talk to interesting people with interesting stories, with a narrative, not a woe is me, actionable, and everything you stand for, Chris. I'm really inspired by. But I'm inspired by the fact that you're a human being who didn't accept what was normal. You accepted your normal.
Yep.
It took you some time to figure it out, but you did, and then you did something about it. And man, I got nothing but props for that, dude. I've thoroughly enjoyed our chat today. My audience would kick my ass if they didn't ask this question about hanging out with The Rock.
Of course. So when I showed my hand to the world and that kind of came out, I got a call and it was late at night and they're like, oh, we want to cast you for this TV show. And I'm like, I'm not taking no clothes off, none of that weird stuff. Like, this sounds sketchy, you know?
Yeah.
I was like, no.
Yeah.
I ended up doing this interview and it was cool. I was like, oh, that's a cool opportunity. They were like, we want to bring you out to LA to compete for a spot against 200 people. And I'm like, no shit. So they brought me out to LA. We did this like 12-hour combine. It was crazy. And I was like, that was awesome, but I'm not really an athlete. Like, I lift heavy weights, but that's it, you know?
Yeah.
Turns out they call me and they're like, hey, we chose 30 people and we want you to be one of the guys to compete on the first season of Titan Games with The Rock. And I was like, what? And like, also, we chose 3 of the guys to be on all the billboards and covers across the world, and you're one of them.
Nice.
So I was on all the buses and billboards. I did the
Cool.
show, and when I lost, I gave a speech. I was the only one to give a speech after I lost.
Yeah.
And The Rock came down from his platform and hugged me, and there's a video of that.
Yeah.
And he was just so moved by it, and that blew up. It was incredible. The Rock was an awesome dude. He was so down to earth, like a conversation like this. We were talking in the tents and he was just so cool.
Yeah.
And he leaves and you're like, damn, that was the dude I played action figures with.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's one of the few that are just genuine human beings.
I bet. I'm certainly enjoying watching his heel turn happen in WWE right now. Like, from a, I don't want to get all freaky on my audience right now, but that's just going to be the ultimate in terms of just like, that's great business programming for WWE and for Dwayne Johnson. Great business programming. Chris Ruden, what can I do as we wrap up the call, our meeting, our discussion today? What can I do that would offer you a platform of value to our audience, whether the book, whether the website? Is there any questions that I have not asked you? Is there anything we have not talked about that you want to make sure the audience is aware of before we say goodbye?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm always available for conversation. So Instagram, all of my platforms, LinkedIn, I mostly talk about speaking on LinkedIn, but all of my other platforms are pretty like wide variety and just everything is at Chris Ruden and my website is just chrisruden.com. So the big thing I would just want to offer, I guess the biggest help you could give me is allowing me to potentially help your audience.
Yes.
Here's an easy framework for story change, whether it's in your personal life or professional life or anything. Whatever your normal is right now, there has to be an explosion to have a new norm. There has to be a disruption period. That disruption period hopefully will come from you, the choices you make. The willingness to be uncomfortable is your explosion, but you're one explosion away from having a new normal. But until you disrupt that old normal, you'll never get to that new normal. So my challenge for everyone listening would be, what is your new normal? What does your explosion look like? And show me what that new normal is. That's it.
Awesome. Chris Ruden, thanks for joining me today in my audience here live in the lab. Like I said a couple of moments ago, I was really excited about our chat today, and you really, check the boxes off. I hate that proverbial term, but you do. You check the boxes off on the ideal guest that comes to the lab here. So I'm grateful for your time, full of vitamin G. Will you come back again?
Of course, any day. I would love to talk change and all kinds of stuff, business. So whatever feedback you get from your audience, if they want to focus on a specific topic, let me know.
That's awesome. So Chris, I'm going to put you back in the green room. I'm going to say goodbye to the audience and come back and walk you out. Okay.
Cool.
Awesome. Hang tight here. We're going to do this. So Business Athlete Nation. Oh, that camera's done. Let's go to that one over there. What's your normal? What is your normal? You heard Chris. You want to make some bucks per hour speaking? You have it already inside of you. You do. Go talk to Chris. Go knock on his door. Go unlock your own value. Go tell your story. Go offer your solution through your normal and then monetize it. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with myself and Chris today. We got guests all week today in the lab. All week in the lab this week. Noon Central, 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 Pacific. Come see us. Come join the conversation. Just like we had today with Chris Ruden. I'm out of here, you guys. I will see you tomorrow.